A little better. So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for jumping on here. And for those that of you that are watching later date, tonight we're going to introduce the Discovery Trial winner and our bonus winner. We announced last week at the annual meeting that Robby Jewell Enterprises won the Discovery Trial. And then AgVA Foundation stepped forward and helped us actually sponsor what I'll call the bonus one, would be Rodale Institute. And we have Drew Erickson and Sean Stokes on here for that. So, with that, Robby, if you want to take it away, just kind of give us an introduction to your farm and what your trial is going to entail. I heard a little about it today, but I'm looking forward to hearing the details. So,
You bet. Yeah, no. So we're located just outside of Decorah, Iowa, just a few miles west. Farm was established in 1876. So I'm the sixth generation on the farm. Roughly 1,600 acres is what we're at right now. A lot of river bottom ground and bluffland acres and stuff. Um, so we have a cattle operation, which consists of roughly 200 head of cows, is cow calf, sell feeders to the sale barn, nothing too special about them, but we rotate them daily during the summer, spring, summer, fall. And during the winter time, we'll graze cover crops. A lot of our organic acres have cover crops on them. And then we'll bring them home for the wintertime, and we deep bed them with wood chips and straw and bad hay and whatnot when it gets muddy out. And then we collect that and compost that through the summer for our organic fertilizer. Um, so yeah, I guess the fertilizer program consists of that cattle bedding pack, and then the turkey manure and whatnot that comes from the barns. And so we mix that all together and windrow composts, and that's very valuable to us, to our program. So crops wise, conventionally, sitting right around that 300 acres or so, not a whole lot. We are no-till and cover crops. It's a corn on corn situation. We got a lot of deer pressure around our area, so beans just and hills and whatnot. So beans just don't do very well for us. Our rye is our choice of cover crop for that. But on our organic side of things, we're right around just under 500 acres there, and we do a corn oat rotation and then mix in alfalfa. Anytime we need it, if there's weed pressure, we'll bring in the alfalfa, and we need the hay for our cattle operation too through the winter. We started a pastured pig operation here probably 6-7 years ago, something like that. And I've got 50 pigs that I do out on pasture, and then 50 in the hoop barn. The idea behind that was to try to get some of these unproductive acres that we have as far as timber ground, uh, kind of work them into like a silvopasture type situation, and kind of have the pigs help us out with that as far as kind of stirring the ground up and seed and cover crops and whatnot. So the pasture group consists of 50, like I said, and they're on quarter-acre paddocks. They're moved every time they finish 2,000 pounds of feed. And right before I move them, I spread a cover crop down so that we have that get that established for the next time they come around. And it's usually like 2 to 3 turns that'll get out of that bigger pasture, which consists of about 6 acres. The hoop barn pigs, they're just deep bedded heavily with straw, sometimes wood chips. They have the same outdoor access as indoor access. They're both groups are fed our organic feed, which we grind all here at the farm. Um, yeah, that's about it for the pigs. And then we did the compost. Let's see, got cattle. So turkeys, we've been raising birds since 1958, switched to organic in 2001. And it's been that way ever since. We switched people who were raising for, used to raise for Organic Valley. Now we're raising for a company called Pittman out in California. So they're probably our money maker, our best operation or enterprise on our farm. The organic is such a niche market and tough to do with turkeys, so there's not a whole lot of people that do it. The barns that we have right now, they're pretty old, but we installed tunnel ventilation, so they have a 7 mile an hour wind when it gets hot in the middle of the summer. and then, like I said, just deep bedding as much as we can, wood shavings and whatnot, and the very valuable manure that comes out of those barns. So getting into my idea here, and I can't really take fully credit of this. The first time that I ever heard it mentioned was probably 5 or 6 years ago or something like that. I was listening to a Joel Salatin seminar on YouTube, and he had mentioned that being as aggressive as a turkey is on vegetation, as far as grass and whatnot, he had wished that he could see somebody do this out in an organic cornfield. So I never, since then, I hadn't heard of anybody doing it or whatever. So I thought, well, shit, I guess I might as well try it. And then this probably wouldn't have come out as soon if Lauren didn't send me this deal from AgVA to fill out this deal that if you have any ideas on the farm, we can implement or help implement those. And so I entered that and obviously ended up winning that. So this has definitely been very helpful in moving this forward quicker than I ever thought it would. But so the idea is to take I think we're going to do 1,000 birds is what we thought, and take them out into pasture, this crop field, I guess you should say. And we'll have 12 rows of corn, and then we'll do 30-foot of alfalfa grass, which is actually already there right now. It's a field of alfalfa. And then we'll do another 12 rows, and then we'll probably have some test strips alongside that too that are not grazed, if you will, by the birds. We'll be using the electric netting. I'm not too excited about that, but this is one way that we'll be able to kind of monitor the stock density of the birds as far as how tightly we need to put them so that they'll do the job that we need them to do. Thinking around like that 8-week mark, 7 to 8 weeks is when we'll get the birds out. Anytime before that, and the birds are just so fragile, weather can kill them and predators and whatnot. So we're thinking that 7 to 8 weeks is a good time. They're going to be probably a foot tall by then or whatever. And the corn, we're going to try to time that up so the corn is about knee high or a little bit higher. Obviously, we'll have those cultivation passes before that time. So we'll probably have a rotary hoe, maybe 2 rotary hoe passes, and then at least 1 to 2 cultivation passes before that. So in the end, if they can save me just 1 cultivation pass through the field, I feel like it's somewhat worth it. Let alone just producing a extremely healthy bird. The healthier this, getting this bird out on pasture, fresh air, sunlight, green material, I think is only going to be a benefit for their health and well-being, and then also then for us, as far as the consumer eating that animal, is going to be just a healthy overall experience. So it would be interesting, and I'll probably have to have Lauren help me with this, but trying to get some nutrient density testing stuff. I know it's not easy. I haven't heard of a lot of it done or who to contact about that, but it would be kind of cool to see the difference in quality that a bird outside like that produces versus even an organic bird that's inside. And then maybe even comparing a conventional bird too that's inside. So trying to get those things, because I think if you could push that to the people about it, a turkey's not a turkey, a hog's not a hog, corn's not corn, they're all different as far as nutrient density and quality. I think that would really speak volumes to people who are skeptical about paying that much for a turkey. I mean, even right now we're having trouble getting people to pay upwards of $80 to $100 for a 16 to 20 pound bird. And it sounds like a lot, even to me, but I think we just have to change that narrative that healthy food is going to keep you healthy longer, keep you out of the hospital and drugs and whatnot, medications, all those different things. So yeah, let's see, anything else on we're building a shade or a structure, and this comes from out of the Salatin playbook too, but I don't know if you can see that. That's their millennial feather net is what they call it. So it's actually 4 layers, but I thought it would be a good version to use for these turkeys too. It seemed more aerodynamic. We're always kind of worried about the wind, even though we're down in the valley. The wind can sure buck right through here. So that design seemed to speak to me as far as what we should be using. Feeders and waters, we've got the outdoor feeders. Those would be chained to that structure, as well as the waters, because I don't want this has got to be fast. I mean, I got to be able to back in there, hook up to one thing and pull it through. and then move the netting is probably going to be the one that's going to be causing the most problems as far as time wise and whatnot. Other than that, we've got 2 guardian dogs to help out with the protection. We invested in them probably 3-4 years ago. We had a fox get in our turkey. It was the outdoor paddock, the barn there, and killed 70 birds on us in one night. And so after that, we thought, well, we better do something about this. They dug underneath the fence. Of course, the fence wasn't electrified. It's just a steel fence. And then we don't see any predators around the farm anymore now with those dogs. And it's not that they're that aggressive by any means. It's just that their scent and their vocalness basically keeps everything away. So we've got them going for us. I'll probably have to invest in the halo collars or some sort of GPS collar so that, I'm not going to put an underground fence in that 30-acre piece. that would be excessive and not fun to do. But otherwise, we'll probably take yield checks and whatnot through the field in the end. These will probably be sold as heavy hens, I'm guessing, just because we want them out on pasture and cornfields and whatnot a little bit longer. I guess I forgot to mention that my dad had done this back in the day as far as just having them out on pasture in cornfields or along cornfields, and they would use the corn as shade. And so that's how I knew going into this that, they're not going to completely kill the crop. But they did damage it in a way that was more so the compaction that they caused during wet weather. It's not that they were pecking at it and whatnot. So I think we'll have an advantage here in this situation where I can kind of monitor how long I leave them on, one piece and then move them on to the next. So it'll be interesting to see what if they cause a lot of damage or it's going to be key on when do we put them out there. And I think that's going to be the learning curve over the years is, do we have to go earlier so that they get, ahead of the crop or that the weeds that we have in the rows, what kind of population do we use? Those are all things that are going to be kind of year to year type thing. Or I guess I could do, the 12 rows here at a different population than the next 12 rows. That would be one way of kind of seeing the difference. I think getting at like the 60-inch rows and all that type of stuff, getting more sunlight to each side of that plant. I think this goes for that, the multi-cropping, all that different stuff as far as the stock cropper. This is, similar to that type of stuff where you're getting animals integrated into those systems, those cropping systems. And this will be nice to be able to then go back the next year and that area that the turkeys were in, will go right back into corn. So all our fertilizer and whatnot will be already spread for us. So that's saving us a fertilizer pass as far as with the spreader and whatnot. They're going to be doing it for us. And they have a high nitrogen in that manure. So I don't know, Lauren, did I miss anything or you want to know anything else there?
I think you did pretty good. Bob has a few questions there. The one thing I would see if you remember what you told me, part of the reason you want to do this is you mentioned the change from when you went to conventional organic turkeys, and you see this as the next evolution.
Yeah. So Dad took it to organic in '01, and at that time that was the niche. It's like Grandpa didn't think that they needed to do that type of thing. It's like, why would you want to do it that way? It's harder. What's going to come of this? And then once they started doing it, they started seeing the advantages of not only income wise, but overall health of the bird and what they can produce. And so I thought, well, what can I do now to participate in this and take it to the next step? And so I think this may be one of those things that I can bring to the table that may have a future for us as far as getting these birds out on pasture and doing it that way. It's definitely next level to what we're doing right now. Whether it's better or not, I don't know. That's what we're going to find out. I did talk to John Peterson for up in Minnesota, the Ferndale Farms, and that was good to talk to him because he raises a lot of pasture birds. They don't do it in cornfields or anything, but they just have them out on pasture. And it was reassuring to get some information from him about how it's successful for them. It works disease wise. They're not struggling with that by any means. So it's being done or can be done. It's just not quite in this way. And so that's what's going to be neat about this.
Cool. And, Bob, I see you had a question. Randy had a question. The other thing I'd say is, can we start ordering our Thanksgiving turkey?
Yeah, yeah,
Back Thanksgiving turkey?
yeah, we do some direct marketing. We don't do a whole lot. We did probably 120 birds last year just to friends and family and folks around this area and whatnot. That is going to be one challenge with this, with 1,000 birds. We've talked to a few companies that used to be there. 99 Counties was one of them. That they're no more. So that was kind of sad to hear that. But the marketing and the selling of these will be a little bit difficult, and I'll probably be asking for Lauren's help again or somebody. You know, John said that they could probably take them up there at Ferndale, but they wouldn't take the premium as far as being organic. Um, Obviously, raised similar to the ones that they have and whatnot. But so yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how all that goes. But I'll probably just cross that bridge when it comes, type of deal. So I guess Lauren, you did mention we were talking on the phone before about like our direct marketing. It's not it's very small scale right now. We do some of the hogs. I mean, all the hogs are direct market actually. But they're wholes and halves, so uh, we don't do a whole lot of cuts and stuff. And we'll do take them for ourselves, and then we'll sell some, I guess, if we need to. But I don't have an internet site or anything like that that people can go on and order. I mean, someday maybe, but you know that would be nice to get into a walk-in freezer or something that. I don't want to manage a store. You know, I don't want to be a person that sits down and has to check people out and whatnot. I just want to farm. And if we could get something rigged up that, you know, could be kind of a self checkout type thing where somebody comes in and they can check out themselves and take and go. Obviously have cameras and whatnot in there and stuff to make sure everybody's honest and whatnot. But, and I think there are people that are doing that. So we'll probably just have to, you know, speak to those people and see how they're doing it and go from there.
Yeah, bring the girls down here to Country View Dairy. We got the yogurt place. Bring them down for froyo sometime. But Bob's
Yeah.
question, I believe, was a little on the dogs and the collars. Can you elaborate on that, the timing? And if you want to unmute yourself, Bob and Randy, and ask your questions direct, you know we're pretty loose here. So
Yeah.
can you tell a little more about the collars and how
Yeah.
long about
Yep.
that?
So just that it's a GPS collar. I mean, shit, they're using them on cattle now, as far as rotational grazing and stuff. It's kind of the early onsets of that. But with the collars, and so the dogs are both they're Great Pyrenees. So one's got a little Anatolian Shepherd. So they're guardian dogs, and they're going to keep all the predators away and whatnot. The thing right now is we put an underground fence in, just the underground wire, and we have the collars for those. But that was around the farm, which consists of about 10 acres here, right in the farmstead. But what I need the dogs to do now is to be able to patrol the area where the turkeys are going to be out in the corn.
Did we lose? I think you locked up, Robbie. His quarter must have ran out. How many of you are
So,
old enough to catch that one?
so are the dogs herding the turkeys and maintaining that or just guarding?
Guard dogs.
So the collars are on the dogs to
Yes.
and you define the space that the turkeys are in by controlling the dog. Did I get that?
No, he's going to have netting around the plot where the turkeys are going to be in, but then the guard dogs are to keep the wildlife away, so like the fox and coyotes.
He
But
just doesn't
dogs,
want the dogs running free. So this will keep the dogs on the property close enough to the turkeys.
you
Yep.
can basically define a GPS boundary around the netted area where the turkeys are. Would that be correct?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a GPS collar on a dog that we had for a while, and it really was phenomenal to have it. Could just free range around the whole property anyway, but then went so far of a radius from a given point. I mean, it's a very simple one, but it did work.
Yeah, he was mentioning they have the perimeter wire around their existing turkey buildings and stuff like that now. So the dogs can roam anywhere on the farm, but they don't bother the turkeys. The turkeys are inside the fence and the dogs are outside, but it keeps like the fox and the coyotes and that away.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
we had a great white Pyrenees as a family pet. She was quite the dog, and they can stay at home and they keep things out of the yard. It's pretty neat.
yeah, and Randy, I'll get you in touch with Robby if he doesn't make it back on here sometime.
Be fine.
I'm trying to message him here, so Drew and Sean, any other questions here, or we'll see if Robby can get back on. But Drew, in essence of time, if you want to kick off, feel free to share your screen.
Yeah, I love the overlap between what Robbie's doing and what we have done and are planning on doing. So I'll share my screen and
That was not planned. After we made the decision, somebody's like, "Do you realize you chose?" There's Robby back.
You hear me all right?
Yep, you're back.
All right, sorry
Rand-
about that.
yeah, Randy has done a lot of research on the strip cropping, and when you mentioned 60-inch corn, we do have Bob Recker on the call here. So
Oh yeah.
if you
I don't
need
know
any
where you
advice,
lost me, Lauren, but
yeah, you're still breaking up a little there. So
let me switch. I got to go back to my other internet. Go ahead
all
and
right.
keep going, Lauren.
Yeah, we'll let Drew go, and then if you can make it back here for final Q&A. So thanks for everything so far. Drew, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
yep, let me make sure I'm doing this right. Am I sharing my screen yet?
Not yet.
How about now?
It's coming. There you
See a
go.
picture of the farm yet?
Yep. If you want to hit, there you go. You're in present mode now.
Okay, so Drew Erickson, Rodale Institute. Sean, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sean Stokes. I'm the research director at the Midwest Center.
So this is a drone shot of the farm, and we do on-farm in-field research. So we differentiate ourselves in that way. We don't do little projects in greenhouses. We do field trials. So you can see here one of our established trials. This is our vegetable trial, and then we've got a field here that we just get to play around with. We've got a couple fields of alfalfa where we're trying to get ahead of the weeds. And then I've got some pictures later in here to show our bigger trial, but the focus of today is this corner of the field up here by the big barn, where we have been wanting to get an orchard established for the last couple years. And it turns out with the help of Ag Venture Alliance here, we're going to be able to do that, and we're going to be able to jump right into the grazing side of this study that we're working on. I wanted to, this is, I was thinking about Lauren when I put this slideshow together, so it is as few words as I could possibly put on a PowerPoint presentation. So, let's see. All right, so I do have a background in working with livestock in orchards and have had a lot of failures with livestock in row crops. So, Robby, I'm happy to get on a call with you at some point and tell you some of the things that Lauren and I and Bob have done and some successes. So, but orchards and chickens are a great fit. So this is a olive orchard where we're grazing the old laying hens from an operation I used to work at. Um, Great insect control, putting fertility onto that land, helping control the cover crops. Um, Here the chickens, you can see they're happy under the trees there. Same flock of chickens, we'd put them through the vineyards when the vineyards weren't in production. So good place to put chickens in the winter. All the same reasons, eating insects, um, helping keep weeds down, putting some fertility onto those grapes. Now here in Iowa, so we are doing livestock. These are research trials surrounding livestock integration. So here you can see this is one field that we split in half with a poly wire. We're grazing half, and then we don't graze the other half. So this is all 4-year rotations, and we graze cattle on every once a year or more on every point in that rotation. So we graze the corn stalks, we graze the rye the following spring, and then we plant small grains in year 3 and 4 and have cover crops that follow that we can graze. So again, just to paint the picture that this is the style of research we like to do is surrounds livestock integration. Robby, this is chickens and corn from a few years back. So timing wise, we should have probably done a couple of cultivation passes. I didn't have a tine weeder yet. So maybe a little bit late on putting these chickens into that corn. This is a project that Lauren and Bob and I did. So this is wide row corn, and we were trying to put sheep in there to manage the weeds. Again, it's all about timing, right? So grow good corn first and then try to put your livestock out there. And I think you'll have better success. So I think you're right on with, hit it with the rotary hoe a few times, hit it with a cultivator to try to make sure you're as far ahead of the weeds as you can be. There's a situation where the corn just doesn't have enough. It's just out competed. So
The
what we
focus
learned from
on
that,
that
right?
field was if we actually had to harvest, we didn't push it hard enough. So
True. Yeah, we were you got to try new things. So so this is the layout of the project that we got funded. So this is all the green dots are chestnut trees. And then we will be grazing some of the plots and then just managing the other plots by mowing. So same map, but the satellite photo. 144 trees is what it ends up being. We don't collect any data. This is true for all of our research projects. We try not to collect data from the edges. That can be a little bit misleading because different sunlight and just the way things interact on the edge of a field versus the middle. So we've got guard rows all the way around, and then we've got randomized plots within that. So we've got mowed plots versus grazed plots. Last year, we got our hands on a deep soil probe, so we collected some baseline data, knowing that this was a project we wanted to get into. So we have the markers where we collected these deep cores, brought them into our lab, and then we cut them up. This is Nathan, our research technician, who's on his way to a bachelor party, so we didn't want to ask him to jump onto the meeting tonight. But Nathan cut them up, and so we've got a very extensive data set already from this field that we can look back in several years and find out what kind of carbon sequestration is happening in different portions of the field. So the next step was to throw a cover crop on the field. So this was oats as a nurse crop. The oats winter killed, but you can just barely see all the clover and rye coming up. We then put some sulfur, boron, and some fertilizer on that field to balance the pH a little bit. The trees want a lower pH, so we were trying to bring it down. And then this is just yesterday, so this project is fresh on our mind. So yesterday we dug all 144 holes. Sean, myself, and Nathan out there with the shovels. And then this is today. So we brought in a couple of volunteers and we planted all of the chestnut trees by hand. Here they are soaking overnight. We soaked them in a solution of beam compost, the Johnson Sioux bioreactor compost. We had some of that around, so we created a bath with that and water, soaked them before we planted them. Once they're planted, we're protecting them all with these plantra tree tubes that in theory will help speed up the growth and but the main thing is keeping them protected from deer without having to have additional fencing. Since we're already going to have poultry netting out there and be moving that, this will make the management a little easier. I guess it'll also keep chickens from pecking at the base of the tree. So here we keep going with the installation today. And then here's the final product. So you can see all the trees are tubed up and ready to go. So we're hopefully going to get some timely rains here. If not, I'll get out there with the hose and hand water them in over the next couple of days. Eventually, we'll put an irrigation system on this, which is the couple of slides with words I've got for you. So the rest of this year, we'll mulch them. We'll put some additional cover crop to make sure that field is ready for grazing. We'll lay out the irrigation, and then for the remainder of the year, we'll mow the plots that need mowing, and we'll put chickens out in the other 4 plots. So yeah, we do have a mobile coop and automatic door, and we'll use poultry netting with a solar energizer. So that'll be our way to keep them in the plots and hopefully keep most of the predators at bay. Data collection. So we will also take some more soil samples. We got those deep cores, but we'll take some shallow more frequently. Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about the data collection side?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we'll do like the top 8 inches of soil. We'll sample those from all the plots and trying to do a soil health panel. So soil fertility, soil organic matter, pH, EC, microbial respiration, and then the lab we send it to gives us kind of a general soil health score based on all of those parameters. So that'll be the initial sampling we do, and then potentially some other sampling or other analysis, such as microbial analysis or anything like that in the future, but starting with some of the basics for now.
Yeah, so we'll keep it pretty basic. This project was difficult to get funding, so we're really grateful that AgVenture Alliance was willing to step forward and get us through the first 5 years. People don't want to fund tree projects because it takes so long to get good data from. But the main thing I guess we'll be looking at is the economics. Like, we want to help farmers do this. So we want to show them that by integrating livestock, you can help offset the cost of that orchard establishment. We will measure the trees this year. So at the end of the year, we'll go through and with calipers and measure the height and the diameter at breast height. And then going forward, we'll continue to graze poultry, but we also want to graze sheep in this orchard. So we've got a plan to do that. We want to get the trees a little bit established before we start moving sheep through there. And then we will start taking more complex data, like just gathering a bigger data set. So we'll do soil, we'll do tree growth, like I said. We'll probably also do compaction, infiltration, moisture. Those are just standard tests that we do in our other studies. So as more people get excited about it, hopefully we can get some more funding and support more data collection. And then yield being the big one is, does a tree that has had livestock grazing around the base of it, does it get to production faster? And does it yield more? So we've got enough randomized replicated plots to hopefully be able to see something meaningful in there. And then recently, the question we've got from quite a few farmers as we've started talking about this, there's a rule that you can't graze animals for 120 days. If the crop is going to touch the ground, you cannot have an animal for 120 days prior to that crop falling on the ground. We don't necessarily think that's the correct interval. I mean, deer are out in your fields and wild birds are out in your fields, and those wild birds carry a heck of a lot of listeria. So we might try to figure out a way to study that if we can push those windows a little bit and see what's actually going on when you have an animal out in a field. How long does it take E. coli to cycle through before a nut hits the ground and you scoop it up? That's all I got. If plenty of time for questions, I assume. Lauren,
Yep.
I think we're on time here, right?
Got plenty of time here. And first question I would have is the mowed areas. Will you be applying fertility to that or just relying on nature on that one?
Sean?
Yeah, I think we'll apply some fertility eventually in those. The fertility is pretty good right now. We put some compost and manure down last year. We'll have the clover growing and pretty close to the trees, so that should give us a good head start. But we'll probably look at some source of fertility in yeah, definitely the mowed ones, and kind of make a decision on how much we need to do within the grazed ones as well. And that's, the other research project we're looking at is kind of the same question, where there's the fertility from the animal, but there's also the impact of the animal. So it's more than just the fertility. It's the actual grazing effect, it's the impact they're having on insects and other aspects. And so really trying to tease that apart a little bit. So yeah, no additional fertility this year, and that'll be a conversation as we move forward of what and how much we're applying.
In theory, chestnut trees don't need a ton of fertility. It might just be more of like needing to balance research because we will be putting fertility on with the animals. So do we need to try it to apply an equal amount just so it's a level playing field, right?
That's
Yeah.
Good question.
because that would, if you're going to go by the trees getting mature sooner, that might be a critical thing to measure.
Yeah.
But Randy
Oh,
had the question. If you want to go ahead and ask it yourself, Randy.
well, now I have a second question. The first question was, what was the previous cropping history on the field?
Yeah, so last year it was just cover cropped. Sean, what we had buckwheat in the summer, and then we tilled that in and got the perennial clovers and perennial rye established. The year prior to that, it was a bit of a mishmash of different corn tillage practices and amaranth. Um, so we did spend part of last year just trying to balance that out a bit.
So y'all were using different tillage practices in different parts of the field, if I'm
Pre
following what you
Previously,
said.
yeah. Yeah, that was,
Two years back.
yeah.
Okay. The other question I had, so you mentioned you had multiple mowing treatments. Is one of the treatments that you have set up where it's a mowing treatment like another one, but you actually do not apply fertility to give a baseline? So there's no fertility applied, no organic, no synthetic fertilizer, nothing.
Sean, I'll let you jump in there.
Yeah, so as of right now, it's basically just 4 with the livestock and 4 without. And so I think it's still a work in progress. Our focus has really been kind of establishing the trees and knowing we're not needing fertility this year. I think we'll keep it just based on we only have 8 rows, so it'll be a 4 and 4 comparison. But I do think, kind of circling back to our previous one, applying some amount of fertility into the mode ones just to kind of balance out the fertility that the animals are having in the other ones will be our path forward. But just based on the size of it, we can't make it too complex.
Yes. I was just suggesting that you essentially have an unfertilized check was what I was suggesting as a thought.
Yeah, and maybe what we'll do is, maybe the edges that, we're not actually measuring data on are not fertilized, and we can have kind of an unofficial check. There's a little bit of an edge effect on those, but yeah, I think we haven't dug too deep into how much fertility we want to do on it. But I think typically what we would do is maybe just more what's the standard practice, like, for example, like Redfern Farms, I think that's the one who does some chestnuts. Are they how much fertility they're applying in their, ungrazed ones, and do something that's more standard versus having like an unfertilized check. Because I think answering the question, do crops or trees need additional fertility, is typically a yes. But we haven't dove too far into that. It's definitely still a work in progress in terms of what we would potentially do in future years for that.
So Randy, I just wanted to show you on the map what the previous field history. So we've got 2 plots up here in what was amaranth 2 years ago. Again, one grazed, one mowed. And then down here is where you can actually kind of see the different corn tillage passes on this map. And they were going this way. So it shouldn't, because we've got 10 trees in each plot, and four of each, hopefully 2 years ago won't impact these trees once, 5 years down the road, once they're producing. It should be pretty even.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Robbie, you can come back on if you're thought of anything you forgot to say.
Yeah, well,
I was
actually, I
gonna.
have a question
Oh,
for Drew.
oh yeah, go for it, Robbie.
Sorry. Have you guys thought about like back to the fertilization? Have you guys thought about doing anything like permaculture wise, as far as putting like a nitrogen fixing shrub of some sort in between those, a shade tolerant one that would produce nitrogen for those trees?
Go ahead, Sean.
So this actually is what I was going to get at too. Someone asked about our spacing. So the spacing between the trees within the row is only 10 feet. So we've got them, I think I'm saying, 10 feet. So we've got them pretty packed in. Another option, in a larger system would be chestnuts with a shrub like that in between, and you're spacing the chestnuts out more like 15 to 20 feet. Between the rows is a 20-foot spacing. So we have plenty of room to kind of put some fencing up and have room for the chickens. So that is an option. I think there's plenty of examples out there from people doing chestnuts where it's not just a monoculture in that sense, and they're mixing in different shrubs and types of trees. For us, the nitrogen fixing will be the clover. As of now, we've only dug like a 2-foot diameter hole. The clover, and that's essentially the area that we're going to mulch. So the clover should be coming up pretty close, and once those trees mature, their roots are going to be spreading out to where the clover is. So there will be nitrogen fixing from the clover that they'll eventually kind of push into as the trees mature.
Where did you guys buy all these from? Was this from Redfern Farms, or did you get them from a bigger company? Or
yeah, so we got the trees from Propagate, and so they work closely, I think, with the University of Missouri and some of their breeding program for chestnuts. We got the tree tubes through Redfern Farms, but they're I forget the company, but they're a separate company, and then Redfern Farms sells them. And we've been kind of using Tom and some of his previous webinars he's done with PFI, and talked with him and Kathy a little bit about some of their advice for chestnuts, and using them as a good resource. So they're definitely well versed in it and have a great farm down there with a lot of chestnuts.
Yeah. I think they may use Plantra, but I can't.
Plantra, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
What varieties, or what did you guys have a specific variety that they said, or are the rows different, or how'd you go about that?
Yeah, so all one variety. It's escaping me off the top of my head. Was it the PQX, Drew? Do you remember?
PQK, which is a controlled cross. So like controlled pollination, but it's like a hybrid of peach, quing, and one other Chinese chestnut variety. So we can get you the specifics if you want us to follow up.
Yeah,
we did that because if you only know one parent, there's a lot of variability. So again, to try to keep everything even in research, we went with the most reliable. Sean's also worked with our perennial system scientist in Pennsylvania to help coach us through some of these decisions.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm doing this kind of same thing with the pigs, not at this scale or whatever, but integrating the nut crops and whatnot. And then, so, take what I want from it, and then let the pigs clean up the rest when they fall. Integrated a bunch of fruit trees and whatnot in there as well. And so that 120-day thing, yeah, I get pissed off about that a little bit. Like, I think there needs to be more research on that, because that needs to be changed.
Yeah, but that's the feedback we've heard as well. And, I think we'll try to, yeah, we're still kind of working through how we can really test that. But, it just really limits that early season grazing, because we're talking like livestock off by May roughly to get us that 120-day window to a September-ish harvest. And then we might try to do something like we could do sheep afterwards, but you can't raise chickens in a 30-day window. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of that feedback. So that's definitely on the priority of like how can we analyze that and share it with NOSB or something and say, hey, this needs to be reevaluated, and something like a chestnut that's protected, maybe we can get away with a 90-day window or something and give a little more flexibility.
Yeah,
And for the first 3-4 years before they start to produce, we can hit them hard. Like we plan to, as soon as they're established and starting to leaf out, we'll start trying to graze them.
Yeah, would you do a U-pick type thing, or would you guys collect them yourself with machines, or how would you go about that? I mean, that's a ways off yet, but
yeah, there's I forget the name of it. It's like the Nut Wizard, I think, or something like that. But it's essentially like the little vacuum for the nuts. And so we'd be doing it ourselves because with the research component, we want to be measuring yield, so we'd be out there every other day collecting the nuts, weighing them. For the and then we'd probably just give them away. With research, we have a different perspective on things. We donate a lot of stuff to the local food pantry with vegetables we harvest, and chestnuts might be something similar, but we at least need to have that initial control over harvesting them so we can quantify yield accurately, and then we just can do whatever with them after that.
Yeah, that's interesting. It'd be nice to know if there was a good market for them, because in the book Tree Crops, it goes into detail on how good they can produce as far as a caloric intake. They're right up there with corn per acre. And so I feel like that would be interesting to see if they could compete with corn, in a head-to-head trial there as far as, calorie.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of the commentary we get about a lot of the research we do is when we're doing small grains or field peas or something like buckwheat, we're like, oh, there's no market for it. Our perspective is to kind of put good data behind it, and we have a consulting team that does market development and works with farmers, that we at least want to kind of get it out there. And if anything, it's like, give nuts away to people in Lynn County and say, hey, if you've ever eaten a chestnut, here they are. There are some local markets. We know some places that do sell them, but it's definitely a challenge, especially in Iowa and across the Corn Belt. Like if it's not corn or soybeans, like it's an uphill climb to find, a local market. So for us, it's get good data, do education and outreach, and kind of get people's minds open to it, and hopefully kind of move that needle as much as we can. But yeah, we're not going out there saying, hey, everyone should grow chestnuts, because it's challenging to find a place to sell them. And people who do, it's a lot of direct marketing or small scale.
I would be a little curious on the source of the 120-day pre-harvest interval. Is that something that's a USDA standard? Where's that come from?
Yeah, it's a USDA standard. We read about it through the the organic standards. I would assume that in a conventional system, it would be the same standard. Now, where they've gotten that source from, and how they acquired that number, I'm not really sure, but that's definitely a conversation that we want to kind of push forward and try to push back on if we can, if it's safe, because I think that's a huge thing. I mean, food safety is, the most important thing when you're growing food for people, and we don't want to be giving anyone E. coli, but I think we could find a way to do some testing to look at E. coli levels on nuts that, after 30 days and it falls in a pile of, chicken shit, are we getting E. coli at 60, 90, and do some testing with like very direct, like it landed in the chicken shit, and let's see what it looks like. So, worst case scenario type stuff, because that's what you have to plan for food safety.
Now, for above ground crops, it's 90 days. So Robbie's probably familiar with this, that in theory, he has to have those turkeys out of there 90 days before he harvests the corn. Now, what's going to happen in that 90 days, since a turkey crapped on the ground and the corn's way up here, like what, again, we think these rules are need reevaluation, and that's one of the fun things about being a research farm is getting to push a little bit.
Yeah, so all these are good questions, but the rule comes down through FESMA through FDA. And these were questions when they put FESMA in place of Food Food Safety Modernization Act that came out, and FDA just really wasn't willing to budge on it because there'd been several poisonings over E. coli and baby spinach and cantaloupes and stuff. So they really don't care about the wild turkey that craps out there, but they do care that you're running animals out there. And so that'd be a pretty big hurdle, I think, to overcome. But I can see why it's such a big problem too, because it just kind of, everything grows a lot better in Oregon in May, June, July, and August. But if you can't graze anything out there, that kind of sucks too.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
you guys have any hazelnuts then too out there?
So the hazelnut processors won't take any nuts, period, that have anything grazing in them, sheep during the winter or anything like that, because the issue becomes um, sheep pellets and sorting them out when you go out and you ground sweep and do all that. And I think even like my father-in-law was telling me that like with the walnuts, anymore, they have to ship any walnuts that are grown here to California to fumigate them. And the quality of them when you get them back just is awful. Like just something in the fumigation process softens them up to a point that then when you try to auto shell them, they just turn into dust. It's quite disgusting that way. But yeah, so like the hazelnut guys, they you pretty much have to certify that you're not doing anything like that.
Well, that'll be a question for Joe and Mark tomorrow. The one we're going to listen to, I believe they're actually using a shaker for the hazelnuts. Is that common out there, or they shake them off and then pick them up?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up because my mind went to that as soon as I got off was like, yeah, so in Turkey they pick them green off the trees. They pick them off the trees. So I'm guessing that if you shook them, that you'd be just fine. But the problem again is the companies that control where you take them to are going to be really leery about that.
There, there's also some people that are trying putting nets under the trees when harvest starts so that the nuts never hit the ground. But all those things are pretty labor intensive to do.
Yeah.
I was thinking I think it's Forever Green we're going to hear from tomorrow. They actually have the shaker where it brings the net underneath and then catches everything. But they're doing a hazelnut bush hybrid.
Yeah, I've heard of that too, and actually my wife's dad back in the 70s was one of the first people that brought kilby harvesters into Oregon to do cherries and stuff where you grab the tree and shake them. And I think with pistachios in California, they shake them too so that they fall straight on the nets.
That's how we harvested olives too. And again, we were grazing chickens. We followed that 120 days because we were certified organic olive farm. So as soon as we were done harvesting, we'd pull the chickens back in and graze them over the winter. But California has nice green grass growing throughout the winter, whereas not much going on in a chestnut orchard in Iowa in December.
Grazing.
So
Oh,
let the
Yeah, see,
chickens
that
pick
might
around through the snow.
that might work real well here actually though, because there's some people that are working on trying to get cover crops established in the wintertime here under some of these orchards because some of the hazelnut orchards have cover growing under them with grass and stuff, low growing grasses. But some of the guys prefer to keep them bare. But our water quality specialists through ODA and DEQ, they're getting less and less excited about having bare dirt underneath it when we get 30 inches of rain during the winter. So there's going to be a lot of work around that too, I think.
Yeah, those olive trees had a perennial grass cover crop underneath that we just kept mowed tight throughout the year. Pretty steep hillsides too, so we would have lost all our dirt if it was bare. The other interesting thing, it sounds like we could spend a whole hour on this 90, 120 day thing, but there's a dollar amount. So if you're under $600,000 in profit, then you can do whatever you want. But $601,000 in profit, and then all of a sudden you got an issue. So explain,
E.
explain
coli
that.
doesn't happen when you're making only $500,000 in profit. It's
Right.
just
Yep.
science. Yeah.
That's good to know, Robbie, just in case
So
you're right
make
there,
sure
right?
you don't go over that
One
600,000.
more enterprise and you'd be there. That was the fun conversation Robbie presented at the community college here. It's like Ross was like, but wait, there's more. And the one thing I want to point out, the reason we were able to give Rodale the award from the AgVA Foundation was they are a 501(c) or however that is, but the original intent, what the discovery trial is, it has to go to a farmer. So, like I said, I want to make sure that's on record. I was hoping a few more of the applicants would have been on tonight, but one of the things I realized in this whole deal is I want to figure out a way to keep all the applicants moving forward. And if it's just a peer group, it's just like the conversation we're having here tonight. This is what this is really starting to showcase and inspire. And it reminds me of, Spencer when he challenged me to help build this program out. He's like, we want to go back and help that 2006 Lauren. Well, I think we have the opportunity to do that here. And the one thing I always go back to is, that's how I met Bob Recker and that we always fed each other. And there was no one-upsmanship like you see on social media and that. So it'll be kind of neat if we can figure out that space for that to happen again. So compliments to the board. Thanks for the AgVA Foundation. And one thing I want to make a get on record, start planning August 31st, I believe, is when we're going to probably have the AgVA. We're going to call it the field day, but we're working with Ag Startup Engine. It'll actually be in conjunction with the Farm Progress Show. So if people are coming, and hopefully we can justify people traveling and all that, it'll be the day before the Farm Progress Show starts, and that'll be in the Ames area. So I'm going to shut off recording and we got the rest of the night. So.